We have a guest today, and as by way of introduction, we're going to have about a 3-minute video. So, Hollywood, are we ready?
We'll see.
I wish I had one of those things that said, "Roll them." Action, camera.
All right.
There we go.
Go Church Planting empowers local leaders to start new churches, redeem people, renew communities, and restore creation through discipleship, mission, and the multiplication of leaders.
Go Medical empowers local medical professionals to provide quality health care to the vulnerable and the hurting, creating opportunities for healing and gospel transformation.
Sports develops international partnerships that result in mutual transformation. We empower local coaches to disciple athletes who influence their community as leaders of the next generation.
What the heck is this?
Go Community Development renews and advances communities through the establishment of education.
Can I go ahead and turn off TV?
Small businesses.
Can I go ahead and turn off TV?
For more than 30 years, Go Ministries has empowered local leaders in the Dominican Republic to redeem people, renew communities, and restore creation. Shortly after we began our ministry, we noticed a lack of both affordable and quality health care in the community of Oilo Caimito, and so to bridge that gap, Go Medical was born. In 2018, we inaugurated our Go Medical Center, allowing us to treat more patients and providing more opportunities for healing and gospel transformation. But we didn't stop there. Our goal is to plant 1,000 churches in 10 years, and we are passionate about using medical care as a tool to reach people for the gospel. Our goal is to host a mobile medical clinic in each one of these new communities and church plants. In rural communities, many people haven't been able to see a doctor in years, because it's too far, too expensive, or they might not have the needed documentation. Alongside the local pastor, we go into these communities and provide a level of care that the children of God deserve. Mobile clinics not only meet dire physical needs, but are launching pads for church growth. Through mobile clinics, our pastors are able to meet new families, new teenagers, and new kids that have never stepped inside of the church before. We are the embodiment of the church, preaching the gospel with action.
All right, Bart, before we begin, can we please ask all of the people who are on Zoom to mute yourselves, please? Because we're getting some of those.
We found the culprit, we muted him.
You muted him? Okay, great.
I sent him a text as well, so. And I did too.
That's right. We'll take care of that too. But what I want to do is when after we made our donation as a class, and it wound up being about $6,000-7,000. After we did that, Brooke, number one, was very thankful, but number two, he wanted to send somebody along to tell you a little bit more about what's going on, Brooke, at Go Ministries, and really thank you in person for your generosity. So we have with us today the star of the video, Lynne Costello, and let me say Peralta, is that correct? Well, come on up, Lynne. Please welcome her. Good to see you. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me.
And so we're just going to do a little bit of an interview today, and then I'll provide at the end some time for you all to ask questions. Are we picking everything up, Bart? Is everything good? Okay, Mike, thanks.
Is my mic working?
Okay. Now tell me a little bit about your.
It would help the PA for the people in here to use the handheld mic as well as the one that he gave.
Okay.
The one he gave is for Zoom, the handheld's for the local.
Okay, go ahead. So first and foremost, tell me a little bit about yourself, your upbringing, your background, all of that good stuff.
Yeah. So I grew up in Muncie, Indiana. Ball State is there. That's kind of the main thing that people usually know. I grew up there from birth and through high school, and actually grew up in a Catholic home. And so I grew up going to parochial school, the Catholicism in our family was very much a part of our family and our family culture. I did not become a believer until my senior year of high school. I started going to a youth group with some friends, which I think a lot of teenagers do, and then the Lord uses that to bring them in. And at that point, I realized that I wanted to make my faith my own and truly see Jesus as my Savior. And so at that point, I graduated from high school. I ended up going to Bellarmine University here in Louisville.
Which university?
Bellarmine.
Bellarmine. Okay.
Don't hold that against me. And then, so I did a bachelor's of science in nursing there. I got really plugged in the university, and I actually attended Sojourn Midtown while I was in Louisville and was discipled all 4 years of college. And so that was the greatest gift of my college years, was definitely that discipleship. And actually through Bellarmine was how I got connected to Go Ministries. So I went on a nursing trip where we did part of our clinicals on the island in some of those communities that you saw in that video. And the Lord just completely broke my heart for missions and laid a seed that was there. And so over the next couple of years, I did an internship with Go Ministries, started leading some teams down, and then I accepted a position with them 3 years ago, and I've been with them in the Dominican Republic ever since.
Now you were actively involved in some Bible studies at Bellarmine, right?
Yes.
And who led that Bible study?
Well, your son helped lead some of them. Dave and Allie were some of my CG leaders, community group leaders, along with Kate and Lane Meichart. They were really big influences.
And you know someone else in this class as well, right, Suzanne?
Yes, yeah. So I worked at Norton Children's Hospital before moving to the island, and I worked on a floor that now she has a lot of involvement on. And so, yeah, it was nice to make that connection.
So you went first on a mission trip to go to Dominican. Tell me about what was it about that mission trip that connected you, that kind of pulled you in?
Yeah, so I had a couple people speak into my life before that trip, that missions was kind of going to be a major part of my life. And so during that week, I was just spending a lot of time in prayer and really trying to see what the Lord was showing me. And it was the first time that I'd been somewhere where it was like every part of your day was missional. And I just fell in love with that. And I said, that's what I want to do. And so I was praying through, Lord, is that going to be here in the States, or is that going to be here on this island? And it ended up being on the island.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Go Ministries. Their motto is redeem, renew, and restore.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so redeem people, renew communities, and restore creation. So we believe that there is brokenness in the world. There's brokenness with ourselves and God, with ourselves and others, with ourselves and creation, and with ourselves and ourselves. And so we believe that by redeeming people and redeeming those broken relationships, that we can lead to the renewal of communities and ultimately the restoration of creation.
Amen. Well, tell me about, there are several areas. I think there are 4 areas of ministry.
Yes.
Tell me about those.
Yeah, so we work, our mission is to empower local leaders through mutual transformation to redeem, renew, and restore. And so we do that through 4 main areas, which you saw in that video. So church planting, sports, community development, and medical. So we do our mission statement basically through those 4 areas and through the gifting we found in those. So for church planting, our goal is to plant 1,000 churches in 10 years. The latest number that I heard last week, we're at 124, which is amazing. And we are, as we're going in and planting churches, they already have to have an apprentice. And so the goal is to be able to plant and then plant more from that.
Now, are all of those 124 churches planted in Dominican?
As of right now, yes. But we also have churches that want to get on board and learn from our church planting in Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama. We have some churches in the States. And then we're going to be launching in Haiti with some churches there, and in Argentina as well. We're going to go to Argentina.
Well, tell me, why is, and you're in the medical ministry.
Yes.
Why is that even necessary to begin with?
Yeah, so I think in the States, we are really fortunate. I know the medical system here is broken, but it's a lot more broken in the Dominican Republic. And so there's a lot of people that are uninsured. The hospitals don't have to provide care, even if you come through the ER. And so that there's a huge lack of people just feeling like they can access healthcare. Then you have hospitals are far away, you have to pay for transportation. There's not a pharmacy in-house in most places, and so you have to go then and travel and have money to buy your medication. So it's a very segmented system. And so the reason that we are there and doing what we're doing is because we want to provide for this physical need that so many have. We have a lot of patients that struggle with hypertension and diabetes and wounds and dental issues and just things that they would not be able to get seen or treated otherwise. So we're able to meet that need, but the end goal of that is to build relationships with these people and build discipleship relationships with these people. And so we're able to have conversations about our brokenness, about, God didn't intend for this world for there to be sickness, and one day there will not be any more sickness. And so through those relationships and through just really stepping in and showing people what it means to love and live with the hands of Christ, we're able to build those relationships and build trust.
Well, I have an editorial comment here, and that is, I don't necessarily believe that the healthcare system in the United States is broken. I believe it's probably the best healthcare system in the world, but it is increasingly being fractured by government intrusion. But that's an editorial comment. Some of you may disagree with that. But tell me about, what is it that you do on a regular basis, and what is your long-term goal of Go Medical Ministries?
Yeah, so through Go Medical, like I said, we're meeting these physical needs, which is the base of everything that we do. We want to be able to meet those. And so we find new services, new things to meet those needs so that we can bring more patients in, but with the end goal of having those relationships with them. Also, whenever someone plans a church through Go Ministries, so I mentioned church planting earlier, that doesn't mean that we're just going in and planting a church. We are bringing sports, we are bringing community development, we are bringing medical with all of that, so that it's tools in the toolbox of that church planter and that local leader. And so they're able to come in and already start building trust and rapport with the people in their communities, and we're able to back them up with that. And so our goal is to be able to provide medical care in each of those communities, whether that's busing them in to see us in our clinic that you saw there, or going out to them.
Now, can medical professionals go to the DR and volunteer? And tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a couple different ways that medical professionals from the States can come and serve with us. We do mobile clinics with American teams. We also do them with just our Dominican team, depending on availability and timing and what the needs are in the communities. And so you can come and serve on a mobile clinic team with us. You can bring, 10, 15 people and serve and do mobile clinics. You can come as an individual alongside of our Dominican team, more one-on-one. And then we also, in our medical center, we have generalists there, but we lack specialists, and that's a big need for us. And so whenever we have specialists that want to come from the States, we usually have patients that we make appointments, and they'll come through and they'll see that specialist. And then the specialists, we never let them leave without educating our staff. And so we always want to make sure that they're providing education, at least, a morning or an afternoon session on what their specialty is, so that it better equips our Dominican team to then continue leading and continue serving.
What was your biggest, here you're a young woman growing up in Muncie, Indiana. All of a sudden you come to that big city, Louisville, to go to school. What was and then you wind up in the Dominican Republic. What was your biggest transitional issue, challenge?
Yeah, so I think for me, the biggest challenge that I discovered moving to the island was just that in the States, we have so many, not labels, but things that we identify with that we don't really know that we identify with them. I'm a proficient English speaker, and I know the language all the time. I understand the culture. I'm close to my friends and my family. I am top of my game at the hospital doing my nursing stuff. And so when I moved to the island, I essentially became a toddler in all of those roles. And so you're relearning language, you're learning culture, you're learning a new job, and you really can't serve well until you learn from the people that are already doing it. And so that was a very humbling experience, but it made me realize that the only identity that I've always had is a daughter of God.
Were you bilingual when you went to the island?
I was not, and that is actually, if you ever want to know what the Lord can do miraculously, it's teach a language. The running joke during my internship was that I was the worst Spanish speaker. My Spanish was not good. And then I moved to the island, and within a year, I was, I never say I'm fluent because that makes me a little nervous because then there's some pressure that comes with that. But I can hang in there, and I can have good conversations.
So you were immersed in the culture, and you had to learn it.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, that'd be fun. How many people want to try that?
It's the best way if you want to.
Well, tell me a little bit about the relationship between the Dominican Republic and Haiti, because we've been very interested in what's going on in Haiti as well. First of all, geographically, how are they related?
Yeah, so they're on the same island. So the island of Hispaniola, 1/3 is Haiti, that's the western 1/3, and then 2/3 is the Dominican Republic. And it kind of goes a long way back. There's a lot of cultural tension. There's a lot of historically things that have happened with the Dominican Republic having control over Haiti, Haiti having control over the Dominican Republic. So there's some tension there. But also the whole island of Hispaniola really didn't have independence until, you know, the 1900s. And so it was controlled by other countries like Spain and like France. And so there's a lot of residual cultural things to that.
Tension.
Yeah, and so because of that, they're very different cultures. If you're in the Dominican Republic, if you see a Haitian, a lot of times people think that the Haitians are on the bottom rung of the totem pole, which is really sad. But that's the reality of what a lot of people think there. And so we have a lot of Haitians, especially after the first earthquake that happened in about 10 years ago, the big one in Port-au-Prince, everyone heard about it. The Dominican Republic opened their borders. And so a lot of Haitians fled for refuge to the Dominican Republic, and a lot of them have stayed. And so they've gotten jobs and tried to make the best of it and send money back to their family in Haiti. But Haiti has been really struggling in the last probably decade, as probably a lot of you guys have seen on the news, just lack of infrastructure, lack of a strong government, and lack of a lot of safety that's there too. And so a lot of people are fleeing for refuge to the Dominican, but they're also fleeing, and I can't imagine being in this situation, but fleeing somewhere that people don't like you, that they don't want you there, but you're trying to do the best that you can for your family.
How can people tell the difference between Haitians and people from the DR?
Yeah, so physically they look a lot different. The bloodlines are very separate. And so Haitians tend to be darker skin tone, kind of flatter faces. And Dominicans look much more Spanish or Latin.
So the Haitians come to the DR, they have not very good jobs. As a matter of fact, some people work in the sugarcane industry. You want to talk a little bit about that?
So in one area that we serve in as well, is called Barahona, there are bates, which they're numbered off, 1 through 100 and probably more than that. And what happened was a long time ago, there was sugarcane fields in that area, and the government, or not the government, the consortium, which is the sugarcane owners, they bust in a bunch of Haitians to work in these sugarcane fields. But it kind of became like indentured slavery. And so they couldn't buy their way out of it. And so when we still go, there's still some of the original houses that they had to live in. And they basically cut the sugarcane, and then they get it weighed, and then they get paid by the weight. But all the things from, they don't weigh it until it's completely dried out. And so it's very hard to get out of that. We're seeing now that some people are getting out of it, and we have a couple of really great pastors there that are making a big difference. And we do mobile clinics down there as well. But you see a lot of just physically grueling conditions there.
Well, the president of the DR, correct me if I'm wrong, is a believer. Is he not a Christian?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me what his attitude towards this is, and if there are any movements going on in the DR to correct this.
Yeah, so I think, I can't speak to all of his beliefs. I don't know him personally. But from what he's doing, he's calling the globe, everyone internationally, to start to recognize the problem that they're dealing with. We have in the Dominican, there's a lot of border hospitals. There's a lot of support to try to help Haitians, but as one country, you can't take all of that burden. And so he's really calling the international scale to become involved and try to help.
Well, tell me a little bit about Go Ministries' involvement in Haiti. And with the Haitians in the country, particularly from a medical standpoint.
Yeah, so for us, within our own medical center, we see about 40% Haitian patients. And so that right there is, there are a lot of Haitians, but not all of them are in Haiti. And so we try to empower them and educate them. There's a lot of false medical information that goes around in the Haitian community just because of lack of information or just weird experiences. And so we try help with that and also help them take care of their families. But even more specifically, so the last earthquake that we had, which you guys donated to, and we are so thankful for that. I got to help lead the effort that was sending medical supplies and medicine to Haiti. And so we had some really trusted friends that were there on the ground, and we worked with a pilot ministry. Basically, it's these guys that are on planes and they come and take supplies over, and we worked with them. We sent over 9,000 pounds of medical supplies and medicine to various areas and hospitals that were in Jeremy and Lakai, which were the two hardest hit areas. And one of the hospitals that we sent it to, we got a note from them the next day that they had nothing. They were completely run out, and then we were their restock. So thank you for being a part of that, because that would have not happened.
Imagine that, a hospital with no supplies, no antibiotics, no bandages, no nothing. They'd run out of everything. And Go Ministries was there to support them and help them restock. So that's great. Well, tell me a little bit about, we know about your work with the Haitians. We know about your work in Haiti. Your work is primarily in the DR, but Brooke told me that you're increasingly going into Haiti.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So with our church planting, how it's kind of structured out, we have network leaders. And so network leaders are over church planters and help them to plant well. And we have a wonderful man, his name is Egla. He is in kind of the north coast of the Dominican Republic. We've worked with him for a couple of years. He's planted 2 churches there already in the Dominican, and he is going to be our network leader moving back into Haiti. So he is Haitian. He understands the culture. He understands the context, which is so crucial. It's already going to help him with having trust and rapport in those communities. And him and his family are going to move back into Haiti and to plant churches there.
Well, let's shift gears for a minute. Tell me a little bit about Go Kids Ministry.
Yeah, so Go Kids is a wing of community development. So it is basically our school. So we have a school that was started when the ministry was first started. That was on the heart of Brooke and Ramon Gabriel, who started the ministry. And it was because a lot of kids don't have financial access to a private education. And I live in the Dominican Republic, so I feel like I can say this. The public education system is not great. A lot of kids drop out before they've even finished middle school. And so the fact that we can provide a Christian education to these kids, and it's not just a Christian education, but it's people that are loving on them and pouring into them, and they get to be in a safe environment, and they're motivated and encouraged to continue learning. And so we do that all the way from pre-K to 8th grade, and then they would go into high school.
Okay, so they would go to a Dominican high school?
Yes.
At some point, do you think Brooke will establish a high school as well?
Knowing Brooke, he might. I'm not sure. I don't think it's in the plans right now, but maybe.
Well, tell me about those kids, because when you support Go Kids Ministry, you're not just supporting the emotional arm of that. You're feeding them there. You're doing lots of things with them.
Yeah. So we also have nutrition centers across the island, and so that provides meals to a lot of kids. So when he's talking about feeding them, we do that as well. For the nutrition centers and where the kids are, that is a meal every day of the week, and they are connected then to the pastor that's there. And so all of the things that come with having a church that's connected to Go Ministries, access to sports, access to medical, access to development projects for the community. And then through the Go Kids program, my husband was actually a Go Kid. And so it's kind of near and dear to me. So he went through our Go school. And I like to think of it as a success story. It's probably biased, but he went through this.
Oh, go ahead, be biased.
He went through the school and had a sponsor that he knew and that he got to see that came on trips. And so he built a relationship with them, and it definitely helped his mom out. His mom was a single mom raising 4 kids. And so they didn't have to worry about trying to afford an education. All of our parents, we asked them to foot 1/3 of the education, $30 a month. Just to have some investment there. And then through sponsorship with people like North Americans, they help with the remaining $60 of that scholarship per month. But yeah, he went through that program, and you're able to send birthday presents and Christmas presents, but it's so much more than that. It's truly discipleship. And he felt really encouraged to continue his education. So then he went to a high school that's called a Polytechnico, which is basically their version of a career center. And so he got all of his basic accounting, not licensing, but all those basic skills. And so he works as an accountant now, and he's getting his bachelor's at night school. So, yeah.
Well, that's great. Tell me a little bit about your sports ministry. Why is that so important? Because I hear Brooke on a regular basis and other people talking about the dynamic sports ministry that you have. Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
So to understand our sports ministry, I think it's important to understand sports in the Dominican Republic in general. Baseball is king. There is, I think, a Dominican on every Major League Baseball team at this point.
At least one
Yeah, at
and
least one,
probably
if not
5
more.
or 6.
Yeah, a lot of times they play shortstop. So if you see a shortstop, you said you have it. So baseball is huge there. But sports is not something for leisure or recreation. It is an industry. It's a business. And so coaches will find kids that they see potential in them, and every kid grows up wanting to be David Ortiz, wanting to be that next big baseball player. And so they already have this desire, and then the industry and the business takes advantage of that. And so they get these kids to sign with them basically from a very young age. They train them up, but when they sign with them, they're already owing the majority of their contract, if they already get a professional contract, to that coach. And so and then also they're not taught how to manage their money. And so if they get a contract for $500,000, they're maybe only seeing 200,000 of that, and they're not being taught to steward that well. They could blow it and then move back to the Dominican Republic and not have a future. And so
another form of indenturement.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's it's helpful to know that, because then Go Sports is the counter to that. And so a lot of our kids, and especially girls too, we have a lot of girl sports, which is really uncommon, but we have sports as a way of having fun, of being around a group of kids. We don't have any of those contracts. It's completely free to all of our kids that participate in sports. They don't pay for a thing. And so we have, and every player has a coach that is investing in them and discipling them. They have Bible class that they have to attend. And then they can take English classes and math support classes as well. But we have baseball, obviously, can't be in the Dominican without that. We have men's and women's basketball. We have men's and women's soccer, and we also have volleyball. And so for girls, I'm a girl, so I think about this a lot, but girls are taught to take care of their siblings and clean and cook in the house. And these girls get to have some hours out of that every day and get to be loved on and encouraged and get to learn a sport. And it's really cool to see their eyes open and to see opportunity through that.
Now, Lynn, you've had some pretty big names involved in Go Sports.
Yeah.
Can you share some of that with us, or do you? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So for nothing else but the Lord's provision, we've been able to meet some really incredible people within the sports world that have helped us develop our programs and just help bring more awareness to their areas in the States. So Mike Matheny is a pretty big name in baseball.
Who knows who Mike Matheny is? Manager of the St. Louis Cardinals for 6 years or 7 years.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Played catcher for him as well. So.
And there's a story behind it. I shared it with the class earlier, but I'll share it again in a minute.
Yeah. So Mike Matheny became a friend of the ministry, and he came down on a trip and served with our baseball ministry. And then he, along with our director of sports at the time, Will Parton, kind of had this idea of what it would be like to send our Dominican baseball players on a mission trip to the States. And so Mike Matheny helped make that happen. And so we were able to, and it's something that we do annually now, where it's a certain age group of kids and they come to the States and they do service projects here in the States. They play in baseball with an organization that does sports here, or they're in St. Louis with kids with special needs and disabilities. And so they are able to come and see the flip side of it. And so for them, they see like, we're not just these people that everyone's serving, like we have a responsibility to serve as well. And so it's been really cool to watch that unfold.
And did you know that Brooke spoke prophetically when Mike Matheny was over there telling him, you're going to be the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals? Did you know that story?
I did not, but that doesn't surprise
Yes,
me.
yes. He told, I believe me, he told, because a friend of mine, Kirk Howell, was there when he did it. And Kirk was saying, back off a little bit, Brooke, will you back off? And sure enough, he got the call while he was in
Yeah,
Dominican.
I knew that he got the call when he was there, and he was so humble. He didn't really make a big deal about it, but he just became the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals.
and he was a good manager. He was there for 7 years.
Yep.
Well, tell me a little bit more about, let's assume there are people in here who want to learn more, maybe get involved in some way. What can they do, and what are some ways that they can be involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything that we do is, I used the word mutual transformation earlier, and you probably heard that in the video as well. Our goal is that we can involve people here in the States and even in other countries as well with what we're doing there, and that it would be an encouragement and something to spur people on here in the States and those other countries to become local leaders, to become missional in their everyday lives. And so that's something that I'm really passionate about, is being able to come on a trip, see what we do, see local leaders doing it every day, being so involved in ministry, and then being challenged with, okay, you're a local leader there in Louisville too. So what does that look like for you? Who are you discipling? Who are you pouring into? How are you using your everyday opportunities to love on people and show them Jesus? And so coming on a trip, coming and seeing what we do is a great place to start. You can see all the areas of ministry, and then through each area of ministry, we have local leaders. Local leaders need partnership so that we can be able to pay them a good salary that's going to be able to sustain their families and sustain them in working in ministry. And so you can partner with a local leader. All of our areas are actually about to launch a sponsorship program as well that's more towards discipleship focused. And so we'll have opportunities for that as well, monthly giving that you can be basically sponsoring a discipleship through the different areas of ministry. So that is something to come. And then also just partnering with a missionary, partnering with a local leader, coming on a trip, and you can partner with any of the areas in general as well.
Now I know that only about, in the Dominican Republic, only about 25% of the kids finish high school. Okay, so 75% don't finish high school. You have 530 kids in your school right now. What percentage of those kids will finish high school?
I don't know an exact number. I don't want to say something that's not correct. But based on my husband's experience, I would say pretty close to 100%. There's a lot of, I think when you already have families that are seeing the importance of education and seeing how much it impacts their child to have such a good education, it starts to turn their mentality a little bit, and they want to invest in it more. And we're really trying to show these kids that that you can be more than the stereotype that people put on you. You know, for a lot of these girls, they have to have responsibilities in the home. And for a lot of these guys, they don't have good father figures. They don't have good paternal influence in their life. And so to be able to receive those things through our programs, you start to shift the narrative and you start to change the culture.
And what kind of not only an evangelistic, but then, because I love hearing you say not only evangelism, but also discipleship, what kind of a response are you having, and how is that manifesting itself?
Yeah, so we've been doing this for about 30 years. And so something that's really cool to see is that now some of the kids and people that have gone through our programs that have been discipled are now the disciplers. And so now they are our local leaders, and now they're stepping into those positions. And I think it just speaks a lot to the success of working through the local leaders and doing things the way that we do it, is that you have people that want to do that for the next person. And so I think that speaks a lot to that. And then, just being able to see people, whether it's kids in our school, athletes in our sports programs, our medical professionals that I work with every day, for them to be able to work somewhere and be encouraged all of the time to continually seek opportunities for the gospel and to really start to change the culture and change what's around them. We're starting to see that systemic change. And so that's really cool.
And Lynne, you mentioned the name a couple of times, Gabrielle. Who is that?
Yeah, so Gabrielle was basically the heart of Go Ministries. That's the first local leader that Brooke built a relationship with in the Dominican Republic. If you guys know Sandra Brotzman, that is one of Gabrielle's daughters. And so Brooke,
so Brooke really wanted to get close to the father to meet his daughter, but go ahead.
So
How many of you know Sandra? Any of you know Sandra? She's delightful.
She's awesome.
Yeah, great person.
But yeah, so Ramon Gabriel was the first local leader that Go Ministries had. He was doing it even without American influence at all. And so he moved his family from probably a better part of town to the community of Oilo Camito, where Go Ministries was started. And so they took, a hit there, but he felt like he wanted, like he had a strong calling from the Lord to have a church and have a school. And so that's what Go Ministries started as. When Brooke came into the picture, he just helped bring awareness to that. And he brought the ideas of partnership and brought the ideas of empowering local leaders to do this every day. And so that's kind of how Go Ministries was born. But Ramon Gabriel was our Dominican president for a long time now. His son Edward is our Dominican president. And then a couple of his kids work in the ministry as well. So his daughter Samira is married to Tim Kraus. If you guys know Tim, he was an intern here, I think, about 20 years ago. And so she's our CFO on their Dominican side. And then his son Isaias is our director of church planting residency.
So he sacrificed and he moved from a nice part of the town to a relatively poor part of the town. Be like going from North Lake or Lake Forest in Chicago to the South Side. There would be that equivalent for ministry purposes.
Yeah.
What a great tradition. Well, now you wind up going there and meeting a young man, and tell me about that. Tell me, how did that go?
Yeah, so I moved there 3 years ago as of August. And during my first year of ministry, I was very adamant that I was not going to date anyone. I was not going to get into a relationship because I didn't want anyone thinking I moved to the island for a boy. I think that's very common conception that people have about young women moving to the field. And I was like, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to do that. And then my husband started to pursue me a couple weeks before my 1 year. And I was like, I'm not going to go on a date with you until this date. You have to wait. And he waited and he pursued me. And so then we ended up getting married in this past May.
So let's see, how long was the courting period then? 2 years?
Yeah, almost 2 years. Yeah,
2 years.
a little shy of 2 years. So,
That's good. Did he do one knee?
he did do one.
Nice.
And my parents were there. My parents were there visiting. So.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Yeah,
That's well, tell me about your parents. What kind of effect has this had on your parents?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned earlier that I come from a Catholic background. My parents really.
So do I. How many people in here come from a Catholic background?
All right, so you get it. So it was originally very hard on them when I told them that I wanted to move to the Dominican Republic and be a missionary and work in ministry. It was so countercultural to everything that they knew and that they wanted for me. And so it was almost like they were grieving the loss of a dream for their daughter. But I think through the past 3 years, they've been able to come and visit a couple of times, which has been huge. They've been able to see our ministry. And I think for them, just seeing the success of what we're doing and starting to see why it's so important is, I think the Lord is working in their hearts in that. And so I just continue to pursue them with love and grace and try to continue to show them why I'm there and why it's important. So yeah, I'm praying for them, and you guys can be praying for them too. So.
Awesome. Well, let me open up to questions. Anybody have questions? Glenn.
A couple of questions real quickly. First one, I guess, of most importance is there a reluctance spiritually for presenting the gospel? Is that more challenging, or is it pretty easy to do? Or
I think it's almost easier. A lot of times, especially when people come on trips, they say, this is a lot easier than it is in the States. I think that there's not as much of, I would say, like the cultural barrier that there is in the States of like, you don't talk about religion or Jesus. And obviously we're doing things through the local church. So if people see us, they know we're coming through with Jesus. And so I think that opens up those doors for conversation. And I really do think that because we're meeting needs and we're showing up and we're being consistent and intentional, you build that trust to then enter those conversations. So we don't have as much reluctance, I think, as you would have here in the States.
Take ballpark, roughly how many children, people are involved not from a staff perspective, but people that you are working with, roughly how many?
Yeah, as of right now, I'm trying to think, school, nutrition centers, sports, and then through our churches. I mean, it's over probably 1,500 right now. And so if you think about 30 years of that, it's obviously grown. It hasn't been 1,500 the whole time, but that's been a lot of people.
Larry?
Yeah, I was just curious, your experience with the local medical community, hospitals and physicians, do they embrace you all or view you as competition? Is there some animosity there? How's that experience?
I mean, I've only been there for 3 years, so I don't think I can speak to the long-term relationships, but I can say that we're having a lot of advances. And something I was actually talking with Brooke about a couple of days ago is, people in those big positions at big hospitals need Jesus too. And so we are pursuing them. We're pursuing relationships with them. And that's actually something that, when we have donations that we can't necessarily use in our medical center, we take them to those hospitals and we take them to show them, here, we want to bless you with this. And so we've had a couple relationships born from that already, and we're excited to see what's more to come. And I think especially as we grow as a medical ministry and start having specialists and probably surgeons as well coming down, and we're able to have the connection with the hospitals of, here, we want to help do surgeries in your OR. And we want to do that. I think it's going to open the doors a lot to be able to have more conversations with people in that area. But they don't see us as competition really, because we're meeting a need that they aren't meeting. So.
Gigi.
Oh, when I think of Haiti and not so much Dominican Republic, I think of like Satan worship, voodoo. And I'm wondering if you run into that when you're trying to get in there and spread the gospel, do you feel resistant from?
So for those of you who may not have heard, Gigi said that she thinks of Satan worship, voodoo, a lot of other supernatural cultish practices. And are you affected by that?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned or kind of alluded to that earlier when I said there's a lot of misinformation within the Haitian community. There's a lot of voodoo magic that goes on, voodoo practices. And so we see patients that have had bad treatments from a voodoo doctor. The voodoo in general, there's a lot to know about it. I don't know everything, but it's very much based on manipulation and control. And so you have a voodoo priest or voodoo leader in different communities, and especially in the Bates, you see a lot of that. And so they will do things and they'll say, you have to do this to get right with this person, or to have vengeance on this person, or to heal this, you have to do this. And it's a lot of manipulation. And actually on my first trip to the Dominican, we went and toured a local children's hospital, and there was a child that was in there that had something really bad happen with a voodoo doctor, and was in the ICU, and they didn't think he was going to make it. So it's definitely really prevalent. And that's something that, you know, as our patients come in, I'm sure some of them practice voodoo. And so that's a way that we still see them, we still love on them, we educate them, and we also let them know that Jesus is your real savior, not this voodoo doctor down the street. So yeah, we definitely run into that.
Other questions? Yeah.
I know. Lynn, our son worked for the State Department, and he and his family spent a couple of years in Haiti, where they worked at the embassy there. And he had a contact there called Father Rick.
Okay.
He's a Catholic priest. And if you want to, I can get you that information if you want to pursue that. He's a local priest that does lots of things for lots of people,
Yeah.
supplies and everything.
Yeah, it would definitely be a good connection with that. So I love that. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question about medications. Are you able to purchase medications you need there? Do you bring them in with you?
Yeah, so I think our city that we're in has grown a lot in the last 30 years. We used to have to bring in a lot more medication than we do now. But we purchase almost everything that we use in the Dominican, and we purchase it from a verified distributor. There's different levels of medications, so you always have to make sure you're getting the legitimate one. But yeah, so we order and purchase all of our medicine there, which I think also speaks to the influence and position that we have within the community is we're investing money. We're investing money and helping with the local economy, which is huge. That's across the board within Go. And so it helps with those relationships that we're building. But yeah, so we purchase all of our medicine there. And usually when our patients come in, so we have an in-house pharmacy, which like I said earlier is really uncommon. And so our patients are able to receive their medicine and have the doctor explain it to them right then and there of how to use it. And so they get their medication. It could be things that they actively need that day. You know, if it's blood pressure, diabetes medication, we'll get a month at a time. So they keep coming in so we can keep checking on them. But we also usually send patients home with over-the-counter medicines like ibuprofen or Tylenol or Tums or cough syrup, because the idea of a medicine cabinet is a very much American thing, and probably European too, but in the Dominican, that's not a reality that people have. And so just to be able to give people, here's some ibuprofen, here's some Tylenol, here's some Tums, you're probably going to need this at some point. We want you to know what it is, know how to take it, and so you can do it safely and then be equipped to use it.
What would you say is today Go Ministries' biggest need?
Biggest need? I think that's a very good question. I think just getting more people involved. The more that we can have mutual transformation and partnership, the more that we can do what we do on the island. And our goal is not just to be in the Dominican Republic, but to be global. And so when I say we're church planting in Argentina and Mexico and Costa Rica and all those places, that is the goal, is to be able to take the gospel and take a disciple making movement to all of those places. And so the more people that we have coming and learning about it and advocating for us and encouraging us and supporting us, the more that we can do those things. And I think that there's a lot of different ways to do that through those focus areas of ministry.
And when you go back, when will you go back to Dominican?
I actually fly back tomorrow.
You fly back tomorrow,
Yes.
and so you fly from here to Miami,
Yes. Here to
and then Miami to
again.
Dominican?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are drugs a big problem in Dominican?
Like not pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of alcoholism. That's probably the biggest thing. There is issues with drugs, but it's not as big as the alcohol. And looking at kind of a global scale, there's a lot of drug funneling that goes through the Dominican Republic to get to other places. But we don't see that as like, I wouldn't say we have an opioid epidemic or anything like that. It's not as extreme.
Okay, one final question. Anybody?
I have a question.
Right.
When Americans go down to like be on a mission team.
Yeah.
Do they open doors that aren't opened regularly because an American has come?
Can you rephrase that question just a little bit?
Well, I went on a mission trip to the Philippines.
Okay.
And when we would go out with the missionaries, they would be so excited, an Americano, and they would invite us in and all that. I wondered if that's the same thing.
Yeah, I think historically it's been that way a little bit, but I will say because of how strong our local leaders are getting, it's not as much that way. We're really there to be a support for them. And I mean, with kids ministry, especially if they see a group of Americans that are in town, they're like, this is so exciting. They're here to play with us. They're here to do all this stuff with us. And so I think there's a natural curiosity, especially with kids, and I think adults too. Dominicans are so generous and so open, and so they're opening doors to their home. You'll be able to go in and see, and they'll let you see their lives. And I think a little bit has to do with just the curiosity of like, hey, there's an American here. They want to know about my life. But I think the biggest thing is that our end goal is for that local leader to have those relationships. So through the activities that we do, doors are certainly opened. Like I mentioned in the video, there's a ton of people that go into the church for a mobile clinic that would never step into the church otherwise. And it's not a bait and switch. It's not like you're coming in and you have to accept, it's not like any of that. But it's showing that the pastor in the local church, we always require some of the local church members to be active in our mobile clinics at the front and the back end. So we're fulfilling the medical need, but we're not the ones that are there all the time. They are. And so they're the ones registering the patients and getting their phone numbers and asking how they're doing and say, oh, you live over there? I go down there sometimes. I'd love to have a cup of coffee with you. And then that can lead to, hey, we're doing a Bible study. Would you like to come? And those sorts of things happen. So doors are certainly opened. Absolutely.
Well, very quick.
And I'll be available for questions after as well.
Did I understand that the total cost for a student at your school is $90 a month?
Yes, yeah, but the parents pay $30. So the need for that is $60. Yes. Okay,
yeah. All right, great. One more real quickly.
I was wondering do you have COVID restrictions? Does that interfere with what you're trying to do?
At the beginning, we definitely had COVID restrictions, I think like most of the world. One of the benefits of being in the Dominican Republic is that tourism is such a big industry that they've opened a lot of those doors. And so actually you can still fly into the Dominican Republic without a vaccine card, without a PCR test or anything like that. To re-enter the States, you have to have a COVID test. But we have a lab that we work with that does that for us. And so, but to come down, you don't have to have, any of that stuff to be able to work with us.
Well, Lynn, I will tell you, you have reached a level of spiritual maturity. I'm not even sure that I'm there yet, but anyway, and you're just 25 or less, right?
I'm 27.
27. I got socks older than that. but boy, what a blessing. Thank you.